Hart, and I've done a couple of indie shows with him, and we did a pilot together. He's one of those people, and it bothers me that people do not know or appreciate how funny he is.
Okay.
Because he did do, like, everything he did most of the time was incredibly serious,
Yes.
wrestling wise. But then he did that wonderful El Dandy promo in WCW.
Yes.
And it's one of the funniest promos of all time. It's insanely hilarious. And knowing him, obviously very dry sense of humor, but very funny. And in that sense, he reminds me of perhaps a Richard Dreyfuss. Where you watch What About Bob as a kid, and you're like, this Bill Murray guy is hilarious. Leo Marvin, get out of the way. But you watch it as an adult, and you go, I understand Leo Marvin. I'm relating to Richard Dreyfuss. He's really driving this plot. I think as an adult, you can go watch old Bret Hart matches now and then appreciate it in a whole new way.
What wrestler that you've worked with or come across who comes off incredibly hard ass on screen is actually very funny behind the scenes?
Oh my, very funny.
Like I've heard on more than a few occasions that Arn Anderson is very funny.
He's one of those people because I think everybody is like scared, or reverent of him. And I think he uses that to his advantage. Similarly, I would perhaps say Scott Steiner. We did a tour on the East Coast once, of the East Coast of Canada, in towns that would basically close up at 9 p.m. So there was really never anything to eat after the show. You would have to go to like McDonald's. It was very depressing. But we did a show in, I think, New Brunswick or something, and we were right on the water, and they had this big lobster house across from the hotel. And Sags from the Nasty Boys, the veteran that he is, went there in the day, sweet-talked the manager, and got them to stay open late for us after the show. Wow. Genius, right? Operating on a level that I'm nowhere near, okay? So we all kind of trickle into the show as we, get unchanged. We go to the restaurant, and it's like me, another guy, Billy Gunn, Scott Steiner, but there's a table because all the other wrestlers will be arriving. And the waitress goes, just so you guys know, we only have like a dozen lobsters left. At the end of the day, and so I'm starting to do the math in my head with my friend who was also an indie wrestler, and we're like, we don't want to get lobsters because, like, first of all, Billy Gunn is going to get like 4 lobsters, and we don't want to get ones. And then X-Pac or Bushwacker Luke shows up, and there's no lobsters, and they're like, yeah, those guys took them. Out of respect, we wanted to forego our lobsters, as if to say we are not worthy enough to have these lobsters, as if the hierarchy system of wrestling determines how many lobsters you can eat. This all like just clicked in our heads instantly. And my friend looks at me, he's like, what are you getting? I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to get the steak. He's like, yeah, me too. And then Steiner's like, why ain't you guys getting lobsters? I was like, well, cause, and he said, cause you're jabronis? I'm like, well, yeah, okay, that's pretty much it. He's like, I don't see it like that. You got here first, you eat first, get a lobster. But I still couldn't get a lobster. I couldn't bring myself to. I said, no, it's a shellfish thing. It's so weird. I couldn't live with myself.
You should have ordered them, and then if you got the last ones, you should have said, Scott Steiner made me do it.
You see, and then I was going to start shit between, it was actually is very interesting is that everyone, as you see, obviously the older guys just fuck with the younger guys, rib them and whatever. Not that it's not like a hazing thing. It's just, it was fun stuff. But you see the hierarchy where they'll fuck with everybody who came after them in the business, but they won't fuck with anyone who came before them.
Right.
So, like, Nasty Boys will fuck with everybody but Bushwacker Luke. Because Bushwacker Luke was wrestling since, like, the early 70s. And you just, like, you don't touch that person. You know what I mean? It's very interesting to see that system. Because I'm sure, like everyone else in the world, if you give someone a hard time, when you started, you were probably given a hard time.
See, now, as the outsider looking in, and I don't know why I feel this way, naming everyone you just named, I feel like the fucking around would go like, I feel like Bushwacker Luke would get fucked with because of his on-screen character. Like, to me, that, like, I imagine him, he walks in the restaurant like this, like, I can't separate. But now that you mention it, the sheep herders were some bad motherfuckers in the beginning who every match was blood. So I do get that. It's very much a fraternity feeling where you don't fuck with the pledge classes above you, but you can screw with the guys under you.
Yes, absolutely. And you would you would enter the business looking at those people as people you want to aspire to be. Mm-hmm. You know, so you wouldn't put them on your level at all. And, you know, Bushwacker Luke is a great example of a guy who you're like, you only saw him in WWF, you're like, he's a straight cartoon character, but he's not that. I mean, he's that and everything else. He was a booker in Puerto Rico. He's incredibly smart, and he's still, last time I worked him, he was like 69 years old. I just remember him saying, like, I'm going to give you clothesline, but I can only clothesline you with my left because my right arm, quote, doesn't work. And I went, that's an interesting way of putting it. It's just there, who seems to be there. But yet, he would call stuff that I'd be like, no. He was like, you want to give me a spine buster? I'm like, no. You out of your mind? He's like, how about a boss man slam? I'm like, your gut is out to here. Like, I'm going to die. I couldn't do that to you. Please. But, like, he works. And then when you see someone like that, like, at, 69 or the hell he is, and he's, like, working. You're like, dear Lord, I got to get my shit together. He's got this hustle. You have to appreciate. And, some of those guys get written off, especially, like, just doing those indie shows, making appearances and whatever. And then you see them work, and you're like, oh, okay. You're still genuinely earning your money.
I find it interesting that you look at him performing at 69 and you're like, I got to get my shit together, and not like, oh my God, I got to start a savings account.
That too. But I will say some of these people love to still do this.
Yeah.
It's not like and some of them have the money and want more money, especially if they can just show up on weekends and rake in some cash and some merch and whatever, and like, great. Give it to their grandkids or whatever. Like, that's pretty cool for them in a way. And you just see like, oh, like the enjoyment of working for them did not seem to go away.